10 seconds. I shall start the show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, I am JTG, and this is my second Periscope live cast. This is Delight. She's a dog, and I see one person is there. I don't know if you're someone I know or you're just a random passing by. Just so you know who I am, I'm JTG, James Thomas Green. I like to call myself an internet celebrity. That doesn't really mean a whole lot. I know a bunch of people know me. I've been posting in all kinds of forums on the internet since my first email in 1992. So I've been posting longer than a lot of people have been alive. And so this is Delight. I've had quite a adventure lately. I think I'll start out by talking about the story of my life, because even though there's only, whoever you are watching right now, there's only I'm going to be posting this on YouTube later, so people will be able to watch it in delayed. So I'm James Green. I was born in Salinas, California in the grand year of 1959. Yes, I'm much older than I look. It's my magic ring. It keeps me looking young. So went to Alisal High School, and just a few facts about me. Went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for a while. I was an engineering student, and ended up having to drop out because I had cancer. My initial diagnosis was that I had like a 90% chance of dying within 5 years. And what happened, obviously I'm still alive because I'm not computer generated right here. And so new technologies came along, new chemotherapy drugs, and that's why probably the biggest reason I'm alive when a lot of other people with my same diagnosis are not. So whoever's watching just went away. So it's just you and me right now. Just me and the dog. All by ourselves. So I'll just fill some time as I keep talking. So the cancer. Spent the next few years waiting to die. And I didn't, because the new technologies. I remember meeting a guy at that time who was had the same cancer as I did, but from a few months earlier, or a few years earlier. Same cancer, almost same spot, but he was in his final stages. He had his 5 years earlier. Remember, he was telling me at a cancer support group a few weeks later, a few weeks after my surgery, people like you are going to live because people like me died. And then he died a few months later. So that's a part of my past. And so when I realized I was going to live, I ended up changing majors because going back to Cal Poly was very difficult. And we've got 6 people here. 7. Wow, I wonder why so many people suddenly joined in. So anyway, this is my second Periscope. So for those of you who just joined, this is my second Periscope. The first one was just an experiment, and it was only a few minutes long. This one, some hearts there. I wonder if that's somebody I know. Wow, 26 people. Well, suddenly a lot of people are joining. So I was just talking about my life, about how I had cancer, about how I had to drop out. Just for those of you who don't know. Let's see, somebody wrote something. Areas to something. So, drop out of what? Oh, I had to drop out of Cal Poly. Shut up, whoever that is. So I had to drop out of Cal Poly because I had cancer. I was an engineering student at Cal Poly, and I'll restart what I was saying since so many people suddenly joined. I was an engineering student at Cal Poly. I got cancer and ended up having to drop out. Initially, my diagnosis, I dropped out of Cal Poly. My initial diagnosis was that I was going to be dead within 5 years. But I'm still here because of there were new chemotherapy drugs around that enabled me to survive, whereas other people with the same diagnosis died. A few months after my surgery, I met a guy who had the same diagnosis as me, but from about 5 years earlier, and he ended up dying a few months later. But he was telling me, people like you are going to live because people like me died, and then he died a few months later. So that was a big changing point in my life. I'm just kind of talking right now because this is actually my first, well, it's my second Periscope, but it's my first significant talking here. No, the dog is not dead. No, I'm not married. I'm single. Right now I'm living just me, the dog, and I have 2 cats. They're not here right now. They're out doing cat things. And I was my father's caretaker for a while. My diagnosis was colon cancer. And I had what's called a permanent colostomy 22 years ago. And I understand that's a lot, very few people live that long with that kind of situation, but I was fairly young when it happened, when I had the cancer. In fact, the first doctor I went to with my symptoms told me, people your age just don't get colon cancer, because I asked him, could this be a sign of cancer? And ultimately I was diagnosed just a few months after my mother died of lung cancer. I've had the symptoms, basically lots of blood and constipation. Somebody was asking what are the symptoms, and yeah, that's for those asked about the ring. That's my class ring from CSU Monterey Bay. Can't really tell if it's showing up there. So, yeah, I could go on about the symptoms, but I think you've got the idea. And then, how many girls did I sleep with there? 1. So that's about, yeah, somebody was asking me that. How many girls did I sleep with? 1. And, yeah. Where did I get my hair cut? I got it at, what's the name of that place? Great Clips. This is my own design. See, it's kind of short here underneath and up to here, and then it kind of hangs down long. So I got the advantage of long hair. The girl. Describe the girl. Is that someone I know there that's asking me that question? Because I think I know who it is if it's someone I know. But I'd rather, let's just lay that. I have had ponytails to the person who just asked. I used to have hair down to my butt, but that was a long time ago. In fact, I had that twice when I had going through chemotherapy. I let it grow. I have very fine, thickly packed hair, and I lost a lot of hair, but I still had a lot of hair, so I had really long hair at one point. And no, she didn't really have long hair, so she was kind of for the person who keeps asking about the girl at Cal Poly, what did she have? Oh, what kind of hair did she, I don't really remember much. Yeah, he is asking kind of dumb questions. I'm not sure. Can you see this? Can the people watching this be seeing what other people are asking? So, anyway, enough of the questions about that girl. Um, Let me just go on and talk a little bit more about my life. Okay, got, once I realized I was going to live, because for about 3 years, every symptom, every pain I had was like, oh no, am I getting more cancer? And I ended up going to changing majors and going to CSU Monterey Bay, and I changed my major from metallurgical and material science to computer science. In fact, sideline here, I was on my way to doing the kind of experiment. I would probably have experiments flying on the space station today had I not gotten cancer when I did, because I'd gone to Cal Poly to do material science studies specifically because I wanted to get into the space program. And, most people who want to get in the space program were doing astronomy or stuff like that. And so I remember asking this guy I knew who was working with in the space program at the time. He's working on space tethers, materials to tether spacecraft together in space. And he suggested material science was the way to get involved in the space program. So I guess a lot of people are going away. So it's down to 3 again now, except for one guy that keeps asking me if I like anal. So yeah, the dog is not dead. See, dead dogs don't do this. And the cat just walked away. Cat just walked in. So one of the cats. So so I went to CSU Monterey Bay, changed majors. I kind of had to give up a lot of my dreams because I was so tired and sore, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to live at that point. And I ended up going to in 2000, while I was still a student at CSU Monterey Bay, my father went in for open heart surgery, which was supposed to be routine, at least as routine as getting your chest cut open and sewing on your heart. He ended up getting a bad infection, went into a coma for 3 months. Nobody thought he was going to live, so I didn't. I wouldn't let them terminate life support. I mean, at one point, the head nurse from the hospital, from the head cardiac nurse and the head social worker got me into a room, and they kept telling me that because my father was in a coma that I needed to let go, that I was being selfish by not letting them terminate his life support, that I was being unrealistic, and that if he, in the unlikely chance that he even survived at all, he would be in a vegetative state. And I kept asking questions about his medical condition, and they wouldn't answer, instead telling me, and you knowing those things won't help your father. And fortunately, being a very scientifically literate person, I was able to communicate to the doctors in ways that a lot of people can't. At one point, I was telling the doctors, just talk to me like you're talking to another doctor, and if I don't understand, I will ask questions. And I proved to them. At first, they thought I was just, relative in denial. But the thing is I understood them and proved it by asking intelligent counter questions. And I think that it was because they couldn't baffle me that they didn't forcibly have me to. They didn't forcibly have me terminate life support. For the person that just said I'm not as smart as a doctor. It's not what I said. I said, talk to me like you're another doctor. I can understand what they're saying. That's not the same thing as saying I'm as smart as them. It's that I can understand what they're telling me. And that was where I was coming in. Yeah, both cats are in the house now, on the other side of the room. Let's see if one of them will come over here. Sometimes I get both cats here with a dog. Cat's just looking at me like, yeah. He doesn't realize he could be a star. So eventually Dad came out of the coma. One of the things I did was, who is this person that keeps asking me these weird questions about sex? I'll find out later when I play this back. I think those questions will be on the screen. It's a little, right now I can't really make it out. So he ended up coming home. I set up, because I couldn't be there with, I couldn't be there with Dad all the time. So I set up a CD player which had me talking to him on it. It had my voice, it had music and sound effects, things to kind of stimulate his mind. And I played it. I was on it was telling him things like, your name is, you're in the hospital, you had open heart surgery, because he was under a lot of drugs, he was under a lot of pain, and probably very confused about the way things are going, what was going on. They kept telling me that he wasn't going to make it because he was unresponsive. And I believe I came to the realization at one point that unresponsive, he did recover mentally. He did recover mentally. Physically, not so much. He was fully mentally, but he was never able to walk. He spent several months in just laying as a kind of an orange slab. He was actually kind of yellowish orange at one point. And I'd go in and I'd talk to him, and I would like squeeze his arms, like boom, 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 in the patterns to try to communicate with him. And so he eventually recovered, and I ended up being his caretaker for about the next 15 years. And I ended up basically saving his life a few times too. He would fall and I'd pick him up. He'd get sick and I'd take him to the hospital. In 2007 he had cancer, and he had what I call the luckiest fall of his life. He fell off the front porch, and the way he described it is, I wasn't home. He fell off the front porch, which was stairs at the time. Now it's a ramp. He went flying, so to speak, off the front porch, landed in the middle of the yard, and landed with a thud. Now, because he was already disabled, he couldn't get up, and it was like the middle of the day. The way he described it, all the kids had gone to school, and they hadn't started to come home yet. No neighbors were out, and the few cars that were driving by the house at the time, nobody seemed to notice him laying in the yard. And he said after several hours he managed to crawl back in the house, and he was really hurting. So I ended up taking him to the hospital. He had a CAT scan, and his doctor found what he called the smallest lung cancer tumor he had ever seen. And so he had that tumor removed. Now initially the surgeon did not want to do the surgery because my father was already frail from what had happened in 2000, the 3-month coma. And at that point he was like about 80. And he was not. Oh, I'm alone again. And so it was about 80. He was about 80, and he wasn't doing very well. So, but I talked the surgeon into doing it with the idea that, because I made the point that if Dad did not have the surgery, he would probably die within a few months or a few years in great pain. And if he did, so we were risking he was going to die right away during surgery, or we were risking that he was going to die a few years later. And he ended up almost dying, but he managed to live through the surgery. And so Dad died last May 4th, 2015, which was the 21st anniversary of my own surgery for my colon cancer. And the last year I've been living without Dad. It's been a tough time. My whole identity for so long was tied up in taking care of Dad. And then when he died, I'm alone. My family did not really seem to appreciate what I had done. In fact, several members of my family have said that I was a pretender, that I had nothing to do with it. Even though they were never there sitting up with him. There were many times when I would sit up with Dad in the hospital or a nursing home for months. I would take him out walking. I'd make sure he eats. There was a couple of times when he would have starved himself to death. Except I forced him to eat. I would put food in front of him and say, "You will eat that." And he would, "Oh, I don't want to. That tastes like cardboard." Because I guess he lost his appetite. And that's really probably one of the more important things I did for him, is made sure he ate. Because if he didn't eat, I'm not really sure other members of my family or even medical people would have forced him to eat. Because I've seen nursing homes and hospitals, they come in, drop the tray, an hour later they come back and pick up the tray regardless of how much is left. And, there's not like, "You didn't eat this, you going to eat this?" They don't. So people would just starve to death in a nursing home if they weren't eating. So, nobody's on there. That guy that kept asking me ridiculous questions about my sex life, I don't know if it's somebody I know. If it is the person I think it was, then I'm really annoyed with him. I'll find out later when I look back on this video to see what the name is popping up. Because right now, my vision is not so great. So it's a few feet away from me, so the camera. So even when the names and stuff are popping up, I can kind of read what's going on, but I can't see the pictures, nor can I see what the usernames are. Well, see, you got another person's there. Hello, who are you? You someone I know? You've missed my story about talking about my life. Other things I'm going to talk about now. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. The Nazi analogy is often used inappropriately. In Donald Trump's case, no, it's very appropriate. I firmly believe that if Donald Trump somehow becomes president, we'll see concentration camps or their equivalent fairly soon. He's a con artist. I think he did this whole thing to basically market himself, to make a brand name for himself. And it didn't. He's probably as surprised as anybody that things have gone the way they have. If you examine the way he's run into finances, a lot of the money that he's collecting, he claims he's self-funding, but he's not. If you look at the way he's running his campaign, the money is going to Trump companies, so he's essentially shuffling money around in a way, and it's what they call pay yourself first. So he's paying it to his own companies. He's paying, for example, he charged like $100,000, I think, for the use of one of his mansions in Florida when he was campaigning there as a headquarters, and his Trump Tower and is being written off as a business expense. So there's a lot I could say about Trump, and I said the things that he's saying are just evil. The things when he talks about the Mexicans and the Muslims and so on, it's just it's not even truth. Well, I'll keep talking for another 4 minutes. I said 7 o'clock to 7:30 is what I was posting. So we'll see who shows up, if anybody. I want to do this regularly, at least maybe once a week or so, for see how it turns out. I know this probably wasn't the most interesting, because I really didn't have, this was kind of a spur of the moment thing. I decided to start doing this a little while ago. It was about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I've been thinking about doing it and finally just got around to, okay, time to do it. I make videos, so if you go to YouTube and search on the letters RRfJTG, which is the abbreviation for Random Reverberations from JTG, and also you can search on Facebook and you can find my Random Reverberations page where I do a webcomic. You can also go and search on Unexpected Romance for my webcomic and stories that I post under that title. And you can support me on Patreon by going by my patreon.com/JTG. And JTG is for James Thomas Green. The reason I use JTG is years ago when I was in at CSU Monterey Bay, a lot of people I knew used two initials for their names. They, HB or CE, and a lot of and JD, and people in my family do that a lot too. I decided to be different. Rather than going by JT, I call myself JTG. And oddly enough, a lot of people shorten it to JT. It's like, no, not JT, it's JTG. And the reason I use RRfJTG is that there are quite a few JTGs on the internet. There's a wrestler, it's a Japanese corporation, abbreviated JTG. A bunch of other people use their initials JTG. But as far as I know, there's no other instance of RRfJTG. So it's fairly short, it's unique. Nobody else uses it, and if you search on RRfJTG, you'll probably, whatever you find will, at least at this moment in time, will probably be my work. So it's 7:28 and 47, 48, 49, 50 seconds. So got about another minute to go on my little broadcast here. Again, I'm JTG, and this is Delight. She's a dog. I found her on my front porch, and I haven't really decided for sure if I'm going to keep her. Depends on my life, what happens in the next few months, or even the next few weeks, or even the next few days. My life is at a crossroads. I'm sort of in an existential crisis right now. So if obviously nobody's watched me live through this whole thing because it's down to 0 again. At one point I had about 40 people, I guess. 20, 30. Now I'm down to 0. So Thanks for watching. Those of you who watched this on YouTube live all the way through, or not live, but maybe Periscope is not the best format. Maybe I'll try another format. So, thanks for watching. I'm JTG. This is Delight. That's all.